protect.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this morning. Appreciate you riding with us today. If you are joining us live on our website, that's great news. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. You know, we're going to cover 4 different topics this morning, as we try to do every day, and I think we're gonna hit on a couple of issues that America really should be cognizant of. The first is going to be Edward Snowden. You know, there's discussion out there about amnesty for him in return for his returning certain documents that he has not exposed yet, and which they're very, very fearful that he might expose. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. The question is, should he return those documents in favor of his personal amnesty? We'll kind of explore what the issues are. Our second segment is Ted Cruz. You know, the word is out that Cruz is extraordinarily popular. In fact, there was a recent poll that showed him to be the 3rd most influential person in the world as a leader, behind the Pope and Obama. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, because I think it's going to shed light on what we're seeing in the GOP and the betrayal that we constantly see happening from the party that you think represents you, but in truth actually does not. Our third topic is going to delve a little deeper into that, which is the GOP equals betrayal to constitutional conservatives. I've got to tell you, the Tea Party, you know, saved the GOP in 2010. And today we're experiencing betrayal after betrayal after betrayal from these people. Why? Well, the answer lies in what they're doing. But the truth of the matter is that what we're seeing is a consistent betrayal of the principles and the concepts by which they have committed to, one, or to the oath that they've taken and commitment that they've taken to protect our nation and to protect us from government itself. You know, the Tea Party came out and has a headline out there, Boehner has declared war on us. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the truth, because they don't want the budget that he's put together with Ryan. Well, rather than adhere to his oath and his principles and reflect the integrity and the honor that he should be representing as an elected representative in Ohio and, of course, for the nation, because as Speaker of the House, he wields enormous amounts of power. Boehner is turning on those who elected him and trusted him. So the question is why? Well, his corporate masters are calling in their loan, their margin call, if you will. And the principles that he espouses, he sold out on a long time ago. He would rather at this point in time align himself with betrayal and tyranny, because the price of his adherence to the rightful duty which he swore and took an oath to represent would result in his dismissal from his power, his dismissal from privilege, money, and perhaps even his own personal demise. Never underestimate the ruthlessness of these people who are handling, and I use that term in the military and the intelligence community mannerism. Never underestimate the ruthlessness of these handlers. All right, our final segment is going to be malfeasance in office. There was a hearing which I posted up on AVN and on our Facebook page the other day about and it was from the Wall Street Journal, where there was a hearing about Afghanistan. And the representative asked some questions of these three people who, one was an ambassador and there were two others there. And the truth is that they couldn't answer the most basic questions, i.e., how much money are we spending in Afghanistan? And how many soldiers have we lost, either killed or wounded in 2012? And the whole video is only about a minute and a half. And what it tells you is that this shows you how little these pencil-neck geeks and these bureaucrats care about the soldiers that they claim to revere so much. It's actually shamefully disgusting. This was a hearing that was supposed to be about Afghanistan by the people who are responsible for everything that occurs there. And they couldn't answer how much we spend, and they couldn't answer how many of our sons and daughters have been killed or wounded there in the last 12 months. You see, here's the problem, folks. To them, it's all just figures on paper. If you walked into a corporate boardroom with this level of unpreparedness, you'd be fired. They wouldn't even give you a chance to clear your desk out. They would call security in and walk you to the door. In this case, because they're dealing with American lives and American treasure, they should be tried for malfeasance and hung. Did you hear what I said? This is an appalling, shameful abuse of their authority and their power, and it shows you that they're not interested in what really is happening here. This is malfeasance on a level which is beyond that of a failure to do your job well. This is criminality. This is a betrayal of our nation. This is a betrayal of the lives of our children, our young men and our young women who are over there fighting and are being sold out by scum in suits back here in Washington, D.C. These people, what do they do all day? Play poker on their computers? I mean, how can you not know how much money we spent in the last 12 months? I mean, it's inconceivable that these people could literally go onto a House hearing well, okay, I'm going to get into this one. I'm so angry about it that I almost want to just blow the entire rest of the show on talking about this. Because what this shows you is, in fact, when you watch that video, I'll play it for you. I can't show you the video, but I can play you the audio. I mean, at the end of this, the senator actually says, holy cow. All right, let's talk about our first topic. NSA officials are actually considering an amnesty for the return of the documents that Snowden has gotten that he has not yet exposed. Now, the truth is, and by the way, there's a 60 Minutes expose out there about the NSA, and I got to tell you, if you for a moment think that you should trust what they're telling you on 60 Minutes after their latest Benghazi spectacular, then the joke's on you. You see, what this really is more of what I have said to you over and over and over again. First and foremost, the shame of this issue is that these people who are in power in the NSA would rather show their submissiveness to the world. They would rather cower on their knees to get these documents back than they would to actually stand up and say, go ahead and do what you got to do, Snowden. Because the alternative is, if they were to do that, Snowden holds so much damaging information that they would have a global revolt on their hands if he ever released this trove of data that he's got. You see, Snowden has, according to an NSA representative, the keys to the kingdom. What he could do, and the way in which he could damage the dogs of war, is so devastating to them that they will do anything to keep that information from falling into the public's hands. They'll tell you that it's about protecting secrets from enemies. Never forget that they consider you the enemy. Now, there's an interview as part of this 60 Minutes puff piece where they throw out a couple of questions to Alexander and some other guy at the NSA, John Miller, and They're trying to, and here's the problem. You see, this is just more cover for what's really going on. He neglects to ask them the real questions. He talks about how they're only monitoring some 60 people internationally, and how they can't, if it comes back to the United States, they get blank screens and all that nonsense. We don't hear the call. We just see the information on the call. We see the to and the from number. And we didn't have this capability before 9/11, and that was a factor in 9/11 because we didn't know that the guy who was plotting all this was in California, talking to guys in Florida. And if we'd only had the capability. So here's the worst part. Leggett, the guy who's in charge of trying to figure out exactly what Snowden got away with, he says he's got about 1.7 million documents. And actually, he was asked if if the 1.7 million was accurate, and he says, I wouldn't dispute that, which means that it's probably far more than that, and they just don't want the public to really know how much is out there. And they ask about how he did it and so forth and so on. The real issue here is that what John Miller from 60 Minutes fails to do is to ask the real questions. Like, okay, so since you cannot go and get this information here in the domestic United States, what you do is you simply transfer that information over to the FBI, who has a direct public pipe back to you, and the two of you then sync your efforts. So you're going over on the overseas side, and then on the domestic side, the FBI is doing all your dirty work. And I got to tell you, never let them fool you into thinking that that the FBI is not funneling everything that they're doing. And the FBI's work here domestically in the United States is just as pervasive as all of the stuff that the NSA is doing internationally. The only difference is that they have the, quote, alleged legal authority to do that domestically, where the NSA doesn't. But when you hear the way in which they try to explain away and couch and protect themselves, you got to realize what's going on here, guys. The simple truth is that what they're doing is giving you legalese in an effort to try to protect themselves from really criminal prosecution. You see, the real issue here is, they say that they're not actually capturing the content of the phone calls. But they do have the capacity to decode private conversations and break the encryption algorithms. So they don't, but the FBI does. Regardless of what you're told by the Ministry of Propaganda, specifically related to anything to do with national security, NSA, FBI, all of the surveillance going on, all of the spying, the National Defense Authorization Act, which I broke on Friday for you guys, and I broke down on Friday for you guys to tell you exactly what's really going on with that and why all of this spying is going on. Regardless of what the Ministry of Propaganda tells you, never for a moment doubt that this regime is not only capable and is using that capability to track your every movement, your every thought, your every action, your every word, and your every deed. If they claim that they don't, it's a legalese, plausible deniability scam. The capability for the NSA legally does not reside with the NSA. So what they do is they have the FBI do it. They have the alleged legal authority to violate Americans' Fourth Amendment rights. It's all smoke and mirrors, folks. That's the simple truth here. And this present government and the regime, and I use that term in its strictest sense, the present regime in our government right now, regardless of what party is at the head of this snake, is determined to turn our nation into a totalitarian slave state of terror. Mark my words and ignore them at your peril. Because the truth is, what's really going on here is they are building dossiers and enemy lists. I'm telling you right now, you can pretend. Look, the proof is in the pudding, and I talked about this the other day. They are rushing to approve this 2014 National Defense Authorization Act, and by the incorporation of this, the new parameters within this new NDAA, they will be able to build and develop the Conflict Records Research Center. Now, that document storage will incorporate a digital research database, including translations and facilities. And facilities to research and do analysis on records captured from countries, organizations, and individuals now or once hostile to the United States. Now you understand what the term belligerent act constitutes. It's a vague statement of a belligerent act that makes you now or once hostile to the United States. And because your ability to get into a court and your habeas corpus rights have been rescinded, you have no access to courts, you have no access to a legal representative, you have no access to counsel, no one even knows you're missing or where you are, and they don't have to tell. You're held in indefinite detention under the NDAA, and you can be held for a belligerent act. No one defines what a belligerent act is, and you can never get to a court to have the judge say, that's not a belligerent act. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a circle. And now, with the incorporation of these Conflict Records Research Center, and let me tell you, what they define that they can capture, the captured record, is any document, audio file, including phone calls, video file, including anything that they're capturing out of your webcam on your laptop or on your home's your television. All these new televisions have webcams built into them, and they can turn them on remotely. So it's any document, audio file, video file, or other material. Now, here's the key words. Captured during combat operations from countries, including the United States, because the United States is now, under the 2012 NDAA, listed as the battlefield in the war on terror. Organizations captured during combat organizations from countries, including the United States of America, organizations, and individuals, now or once hostile to the United States. Make no mistake about it, folks. They are laying the groundwork for a surveillance system that would rival anything that any tyrant down through history has accomplished. And the end goal of this is very simple. I know that people don't want to think that our folks are this corrupt and this dangerous. But I've got to tell you, you're making a mistake if you think they're not. If you believe that they are not really this nefarious and dangerous, I got to tell you, the article out there this morning on Yahoo News, Snowden fuels fear of Big Brother USA, ought to tell you something. You see, the Ministry of Propaganda is out there covering and protecting the national government and what they're doing. You know, don't underestimate the clear and present danger that these people pose to our nation. I don't care what side of the ideological fence you sit on. If you're a Democrat, if you support that, if you are a liberal or a progressive, if you are a conservative, if you are an ultra-conservative, if you are a constitutional conservative, if you are a Republican and you're just kind of waking up, let me tell you something. This example here of everything that's happening around us is emblematic of the desperate and ruthless nature of these people that I refer to as the dogs of war. They inhabit this government, and they utilize every dirty trick in the book to accomplish their task. There's a song which accurately represents it, and I've played it before during the course of when we're sitting here and discussing these issues. And the reason I do is because it's extraordinarily representative of what's going on here. These are men of evil, and they are willing to utilize the Machiavellian principle of the ends justify the means. What they don't recognize, and they've completely capitulated to the dark side on this thing, is that the ends don't justify the means. Good cannot come from evil. It never has been able to, and it never will. Irrespective of how you try to rationalize that, how you try to provide some level of correlation between the fact that we're going to accomplish good by doing evil, the end never ends up that way. You know, the lyrics to this song are so appropriate. The dogs of war and men of hate With no cause, we don't discriminate. Discovery is to be disowned. Our currency is flesh and bone. Hell opened up and put on sale. Gather round and haggle. For hard cash, we will lie and deceive. And even our masters don't know the webs we weave. You see, the truth is, these people are operating, for all intents and purposes, outside of the boundaries. There's an article this morning about the guy caught over in Iran who's been over there and held since 2007. Turns out that he was operating based on CIA's intentions. They had him over there secretly on some black op. Well, here's the problem, folks. This thing is made up. I mean, the lyrics of this are perfect. Invisible transfers, long-distance phone calls, hollow laughter in marble halls. Steps have been taken, a silent uproar. It's unleashed the dogs of war. You can't stop what has begun. Signed, sealed, they deliver oblivion. We all have a dark side, to say the least, and dealing in death is the nature of the beast. One world, it's a battleground. One world, and we're going to smash it down. The dogs of war don't negotiate. The dogs of war don't capitulate. They will take, and you will give. And you must die so that they may live. You can knock on any door, but wherever you go, you know they've been there before. Well, winners can lose, and things can get strained. But whatever you change, you know the dogs remain. Ladies and gentlemen, that lyric, and you may not like that type of music, and I don't really care whether you do or not. The simple truth is, this is the state in which we are operating. These folks that are out there today, you know, I watched a movie the other day called Inglorious Bastards, I think it was. It was a movie that had Brad Pitt in it about how they tried to blow up a bunch of key Nazis in a movie theater. And the truth is that the level of conniving and scheming and skullduggery that was represented in that movie is extraordinarily accurate, in the sense that that's exactly what's happening to our nation today. And I know most Americans don't want to think that way. I know we don't want to think evil of our own government. But I've got to tell you, we are now in a point where we have all the empirical proof that we need. And it's not that we suspect things that are wrong. It's that we have empirical proof that all we've suspected for over a decade is actually happening. The Ministry of Propaganda, or the MOP as I like to call them, would soft soap this tyranny to you to soften that blow. But the truth is, if any of these journalistic organizations had any integrity, they would expose this treason with accurate language, irrespective of the consequence, just like Snowden. But nobody has the brass to just say what everybody is already thinking. Well, let me tell you, I do, and I will. It's a police state, folks. We're in a fascist regime that is intent on the destruction of the principles and the fabric of everything that has made this nation the wonderland of the planet. Any soft peddling of what is really going on to the contrary is simply whitewashing unmitigated evil. We'll be back in just a second.